Welcome to Mission Ignition, a new leadership development podcast from Catalyzer and Catalyzer Media, organized to introduce you to our team and our approach to igniting leadership growth in your organization. I'm Steve Ingalls, President, CEO at Catalyzer, and we're excited to share another episode with you.
Well, welcome back to another edition of Mission Ignition. I'm joined today by a relatively new colleague of ours, Lea Hegge. Lea lives in Lake Tomahawk, Wisconsin. I'll let her tell you a little bit about where that might be. But good morning, Lea. Welcome.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, Lake Tomahawk, Wisconsin. It's really far north. I'm about 45 minutes from the UP. And there are a lot of lakes and rivers. And it snowed. It's snowing currently.
Oh, a lot of lakes. Like Lake Tomahawk would be a lake in...
There's a big lake. There's probably 20 other little lakes in a 2-mile radius.
What does someone do when they live in Lake Tomahawk, Wisconsin?
It's a tourist area. So in the summer, we're really, really busy with fishing and boating and water skiing, that kind of stuff, ATVs. And then in the winter, it's snowmobiles, ice fishing. It's a very outdoorsy place.
And in the greater metropolitan area of Lake Tomahawk, how many humans would that be?
I think there's under 400 in Lake Tomahawk year-rounders, but there's probably 10,000 second homes here. And then there's other tourist communities really close to here. So it blows up in the summer.
Okay. Well, enough. We'll send the invoice to the Chamber of Commerce in Lake Tomahawk for all of that.
That'd be cool if we had one of those.
Well, tell us a little bit about you and what you do for Catalyzer, please.
Sure. Well, my main role with Catalyzer is facilitating trainings, which is one of my favorite things to do. I've been facilitating trainings with Catalyzer for about 2 years. I really love to be with people, build relationships with folks in the room, and help them kind of connect to their role as a leader and what that means for them. I'm adding a little bit more to what I'm doing with Catalyzer. So obviously the main thing is facilitation, but I'm also going to be starting to do a little coaching, which I'm excited about, a little nervous about. I'm going to be doing a little content development, which I have a lot of experience in other roles that I've had. I'm really interested in different areas of growth for Catalyzer, looking at things about, equity and inclusion and women in leadership, psychological safety, things like that. I'm also working on building an evaluation plan for one of Catalyzer's larger projects to kind of ensure that what we're doing is what we think is happening. So ensuring that we're successful, making tweaks where we need to make tweaks, just digging a little bit deeper on the outcomes of the program.
And none of this would be possible but for an unexpected introduction that involved the two of us about 4 years ago, probably. Obviously has persisted for better or for worse from your perspective with me and the organization since then. So tell folks a little bit about how we met and know each other.
Sure, definitely for the better. I was on the leadership team of a national nonprofit. We focused on sexual assault prevention, other forms of interpersonal violence, and we had a contract with the Army SHARP Academy. SHARP is their sexual harassment and assault response and prevention program. We were the subcontractor, and we had a prime that we were having some challenges with. So that prime contracted Steve Ingalls to come in and save the day. We were having a difficult relationship with our prime, and Steve really did. He fixed it. Steve and I worked really well together. I'm talking about you like you're not here.
Yeah, I'm sitting right here.
That was weird. I think, Steve, you and I connected. We are not similar in a lot of ways. We have a lot of differences in our belief systems, but for whatever reason, I feel like we've built this really trusting relationship, and I admire you. I see you now as a colleague, a friend, a mentor. I've learned a lot from you. So as we have grown in our relationship, I think I'll grow with Catalyzer, hopefully. I've had a lot of fun getting to travel with you and learning from you.
Well, you brought up traveling and a lot of fun. A little off script, I'd be interested if you can think back to the times that we have been on the road doing what we do. Is there a place or a group that stands out to you as your favorite so far?
We've traveled a lot to Grand Junction, Colorado, to work with their criminal justice services department. I feel like we've grown our relationships with that department a lot. Steve, you had a pre-existing relationship with their director when he was sheriff in that area. And he brought us in to work with some rising leaders, some folks who hadn't, are not in any kind of established formal leadership roles, but are definitely in need of some skill building around that area. And they have become my favorite, I think, probably because I've spent the most amount of time with them. And, one of the reasons I love them so much too is because I didn't have a lot of experience with that type of work. So I feel like I've learned a lot and how they operate, and a lot of aspects of leadership and building the capacity of an organization is pretty universal. There are themes across lots of organizations that we've worked with. They have some unique ones, but I think they're all really dedicated to their work and improving their community, and I've been pretty inspired by them.
It is a special bunch for sure. Speaking of special bunches, you've got a bunch in Lake Tomahawk, Wisconsin that live at your address. So tell us a little bit about yourself first, a little bit on your professional journey to where you are today. And we definitely want to hear about girls and Mark. And so go ahead, take it away.
I'll start with the personal side of things. So I live with my spouse, Mark, who is currently a mountain bike mechanic. He is a very creative, hands-on kind of person. So his background is in wooden boat building. He still does some of that, a lot of repairs on wooden canoes and drift boats, things like that. He loves gravity sports. So he does anything where there's a hill or a decline involved. So he whitewater kayaks, whitewater canoes, skis, mountain bikes. He's a pretty adventurous fella. Very good partner, very good dad. So we have a lot of fun together. We have 2 children, both girls, Agnes and Elsie. They are 9 and 6. They are hockey players. They are wild and crazy, awesome kids. We also have a disturbingly large Great Dane named Phoebe, who's about 170 pounds and takes up most of our home.
Phoebe. What was the thinking behind naming her Phoebe?
Oh, the first day we got her, we had a whole bunch of names. I really wanted to name her Dolly Parton, but she just wasn't a Dolly. So we were thinking about names, and she was about 45 pounds at 12 weeks and very uncoordinated. And if you remember the episode of Friends where Phoebe is running and she's like running all crazy and uncoordinated. And I was like, she's Phoebe Buffet. And then that's why we named her Phoebe.
There you go. That's a good story. How about your professional journey?
Sure. I have always kind of been in work that is, related to nonprofits, wanting to, with the very small goal of changing the world. I want to make the world a better place for folks. The thing that I care most deeply about is making sure that, women and people who are marginalized can thrive in their work and their personal lives anywhere. And so I have focused a lot of my career on sexual assault and domestic violence prevention. So I started in that field. I went to grad school at the University of Kentucky, where I intersected with a program that was doing more to prevent violence than anything I had ever seen before. So I felt really lucky. And I joined that organization, worked there for about 15 years, where I rose as a leader and helped develop that organization. They are still very successful. I'm still connected to them. I'm really proud of the work that they do. Through that journey, I think I have kind of expanded in what I'm able to do and what I want to do with my career. I'm less inclined to want to spend 70 hours a week working now that I have kids and, a family and a life. But I want to continue to make change for people. And I think through Catalyzer, I can really do that. I can developing skills and capacity at organizations, both individually and collectively. People shouldn't have to go to work and feel humiliated or feel scared or feel, fearful of their job on a daily basis. And I think with good leadership and with good emotional intelligence skills, relationships, things like that, people can go to work and really thrive. That helps their personal life. That helps their professional life. And so I think I'm on the same kind of career trajectory as I always have been. It just looks a little different now.
With your addition to the team, you're the only team doula. What?
Yeah, I will say it's more of a hobby now, but yes.
What other interesting tidbits someone who doesn't know you find fascinating about Lea Hegge?
Sure. Well, I am a trained birth doula. I love and am fascinated by the process of birth. So I worked really hard when I was starting our family with our two girls to have natural births. And so I, learned a lot about it, and I've done some training. I was going to dive into that. Life kind of took on a different shape for me in the last couple of years, but I still help a lot of friends and family who are going through their pregnancies and labor process. I love that. Just kind of an aside. I also bartend. There's a bar restaurant down the road from my house that a friend of mine owns, and so I help out there a lot. It's just kind of a fun social thing, because when you live in Lake Tomahawk and you work remotely, it's really hard to meet people. But it's really fun to get out in the community with the townies.
Well, since you mentioned it, and since it is your friend that owns it, you probably owe them a commercial. So the name of the place?
The name of the place is the Gaslight Tavern. It is an Asian bistro now. Newly Asian. We were just like a regular old American bar for a long time, but we have a new chef and he's amazing. And so it's become really, really popular.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Because you know that of all the genres of food, that
right.
Tomahawk would be known for its Asian fusion.
Yeah. It's
guessing.
It is now. It is now, Steve. Unexpectedly.
To leadership a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody on our team has a favorite leadership war story, or kind of something that is a touchstone for them.
Sure. I think, well, I'll back up a little bit. So I think one of the things that I think is most challenging as a leader is when you're kind of in a mid-level position and you are being managed and you are managing. And, you don't necessarily have control over all the things at the highest level, and you don't necessarily have control over things at the lowest level, but you're trying to bridge those gaps and you're trying to bring everybody together. I worked for an organization for a long time that had really strong leadership at the top, but not a lot of communication between highest and lowest levels. So I ended up doing a lot of managing up in ways that quite honestly made me feel really uncomfortable a lot of the time. And I think that's one of the things that I have kind of taken on and that I care about with leadership and developing skills in people, is that the highest levels of leadership really need to understand what psychological safety looks like for all levels of their organization. So ensuring that people feel, safe when they come to work, that they feel like their voice is heard, that they can give feedback without repercussion, that they can, there's some version of upward mobility for them that they can work towards, that they're motivated to contribute in a positive way to the organization. And I think a lot of times there's not enough communication or relationships to be able to do that effectively in some organizations. So I think that's like the thing I care about most, is that, people want to be there, they want to contribute, and they're given the opportunity to actually contribute effectively.
Back to managing up for a second. We talk about managing up in one of our coaching modules, but it's almost a side conversation. And yet, if I'm a mid-level leader, I find myself in that predicament regularly. From your perspective about managing up, one or two tips you would offer to somebody to do that effectively, even in an environment arguably where they don't feel comfortable approaching power right, with truth.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one thing that everyone needs to start with is looking at their emotional intelligence and how to self-manage, how to self-regulate for really hard conversations, so that they can both have some challenging conversations with folks that they're supervising or overseeing, and then that they can bring that to leadership in a way that can be heard. And so I think both self-management and social management at those levels is really important. Relationships are really important. You can't go to a manager or a leader with a complaint or, something that needs to change, and just ask for it. If you don't have an effective relationship, they can knock you down pretty quickly. But if they trust you, if they know you, if they know your heart, where you're coming from, those asks can be managed in a different way. So I think developing really positive relationships, both up and down and across, are key. I think oftentimes we talk a lot about relationship building with Catalyzer, but I think oftentimes people hear relationship building as a side note, well, that's obvious. Everyone needs relationships. But I would argue that it might be the number one key to effective leadership. And when you are at that mid-level and you've got to be sort of the liaison between higher and lower levels and be able to effectively talk to leadership in a way that they're going to hear it, that relationship on both sides, all sides are.
It's a reasonable segue even to the last question that I've got for you, because we routinely find ourselves in the position of talking with organizations, and almost to an organization, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. We would say that you're primarily in the people business. And if I ask someone what they do in passing, they'll say, well, I'm a deputy sheriff, or I'm a food manufacturer, or I'm X, or I'm a Y. Again, almost on the side, they want to say, oh, but I also lead a team of 10. And in the vein of talking to organizations about what winning looks like, we often get a lot of metrics-driven responses that never speak to the fact that in truth, Catalyzer believes that every organization is in the people business. You just happen to do X, fill in the blank. So that's Catalyzer's thing. And it's going to get repeated again in the trailer. When people are done listening to this, they're going to hear me say the same thing over and over again. What's the thing you would like people to walk away from this conversation understanding about leadership, or thinking about leadership, or thinking about Catalyzer?
I think the thing that I hope people walk away from Catalyzer trainings with is a higher level of confidence and competence as a leader, so that they feel more equipped to both model new behaviors, be able to have, create positive change, innovations, relationships, things like that within their industry. But I think there's kind of two levels of that. There's one, I like working with groups as, looking at people in the room as individuals and developing their skills. But I think for organizations to really build their capacity and to be able to grow and change as the world changes, it's about collective action. So you're only as good as your weakest link. So, I think the organizations that bring us in and only train their executive leadership team or only train their mid-level leaders, I think is a mistake. I think the ones who bring us in and have us work with the entire hierarchy of their organization to develop skills from lowest level to people who have never thought of themselves as leaders, all the way to the folks who, can only see themselves as a CEO. That's where we'll have the most change within an organization, when enough individuals have the skills to be able to motivate others to contribute effectively to their mission. That's when change happens. So, it's not about individuals. It's about collective action within an organization. So I think leadership, the most effective leaders are able to empower collective action, empower people that work for their organization to feel like they're contributing to something bigger than just themselves.
You started with a sentence that caught my attention, and that is, my hope programs that Catalyzer offers is that's the outcome.
Yeah.
Is it? Are we doing that? And there's no doubt that we have work to do, but are we doing that?
I think we are, but I don't think we know how much. So, one of the things in my background that I think is super valuable to any program is evaluation, and looking at, really looking at metrics that measure outcomes, that measure our processes, how much people like the program, how much, measuring their knowledge and skills related to our intended program objectives. Right now, we're looking at some satisfaction scales. We're looking at some levels of knowledge, but I think we could go a lot deeper. And I think if we went deeper into, really measuring the skills people are leaving with, we have an opportunity to improve our program and make tweaks to hone in on those skills. I think, my goal as a contributor to Catalyzer would be that everybody leaves our training room, with an answer to the question of what are you going to do as a result of this training? And people should kind of have a list of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to read this, I'm going to talk to my team about this, I'm going to, real concrete, tangible things that they're going to do as a result of our training.
Again, thoughtful conversation. That's one thing that I enjoy about hanging out with you. I appreciate the feedback. Even more so, I appreciate the time. I look forward to the next time we're going to travel. We'll chat about that pretty soon.
Right. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Lea.
Pleasure.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us on Mission Ignition. We hope you'll tune in again soon and make this one of your go-to sources for plain, practical thinking around the contemporary issues you, your leaders, and your organization are dealing with. In the meantime, please check us out on our website at www.teamcatalyzer.com and on LinkedIn. Remember, regardless of what business we're in, we're primarily in the people business. Now time to get out there and ignite some great.